Hey, Defenders, welcome back. So today is a big release. I'm really excited to introduce one of the most powerful updates that we've had to Copilot. And that is something that I've been learning a little bit more of myself and tinkering with behind the scenes of how to actually make this a reality and bring an AI chat integration that allows us to directly interface with our Wazuh Manager, our Wazuh Indexer, Velociraptor, and of course, Copilot itself, giving you guys the ability to now chat with your stack just like you were interfacing with a colleague. So here you can ask about recent alerts, dive into index logs, run Velociraptor artifacts, all within natural language, and Copilot will then handle the rest. So stick around and we'll jump into it. So going into our GitHub repo here, you'll notice immediately that we have had some new entries into our Docker Compose as well as our .env file. So if we have a current running instance of Copilot, we will need to modify our Docker Compose and our .env files to contain the latest entries, which we'll walk through here within a sec. But what I immediately want to highlight to you guys is that we are introducing a new service that is going to exist within our whole Docker stack application of Copilot here. So you guys are already familiar with the front end, the back end, and there will be no modifications to those services needed there. But what we have added is that we built in this new Copilot MCP service, which is going to leverage, if you've been following along with some of our recent updates, we've introduced the Wazuh MCP server as well as the Velociraptor NCP server. So the end goal of that was actually to bring those directly into Copilot itself. And we're actually running those within this Copilot MCP service. You'll also notice that there are a lot of new environment variables here, which we'll need to add to our .env file. You'll notice also here that we're leveraging OpenAI. Now, trust me, I hear you. I absolutely get the desire to run self-hosted LLMs, and that's something that I would like to explore further down the road as well. But right now, this feature does require access to OpenAI's GPT-4o model is the one I've been experimenting with and I've found good results with. So that's what I've been developing and testing with during this phase. And this will be, and leveraging OpenAI and the GPT-4o model is definitely what I would recommend for this release. I'm also curious how many of you guys actually run your local LLMs within a production environment. More often than not, we come across clients who are just leveraging OpenAI anyway. So I figured that would be a good starting ground for this feature. Let's now actually jump into the new additions to the .env file. So you'll notice we've added a new section here called Copilot MCP, where we have our new configuration. So let's actually go ahead and jump onto our Copilot server and update Copilot for this new AI chatbot. All right, so I've just stopped my current Copilot application. And what I'm first going to go ahead and do is just modify the .env. So let me go into our repo and I will copy our code block starting here. And I'll just paste that within here. And let's step through what will need to be changed. So we'll first, of course, need to replace our OpenAI API key. I'm just going to leave this to replace me for now. Next, I am going to need to define where my OpenSearch URL. Now, this actually pertains to your Wazuh Indexer. So this would be the IP address or the host name of your Wazuh Indexer server. So even though it does say OpenSearch URL, do take into consideration that this is actually the Wazuh Indexer. The reason it's called OpenSearch, if you're curious, is that OpenSearch has already created MCP servers. So I figured, and since the Wazuh Indexer is just OpenSearch under the hood, I figured why reinvent the wheel? I will just take advantage of what OpenSearch has provided for us. So I'm then going to input my OpenSearch username and password. And this is also something you can likely just duplicate from your current Copilot configuration. But one thing I do want to highlight again is that this Copilot MCP will be reaching out to your Wazuh Indexer URL. So you need to point that accordingly. I'm also going to leave this to false and leave this to false as well. And now let's scroll down to our MySQL. So Copilot is leveraging MySQL under the hood which acts as its database. So I'm going to now replace my MySQL password with the user that I defined for Copilot. So if I scroll up here, and this would have been defined when you first started Copilot and set those settings. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy what's currently there And I'm going to input that where I have my replace with password from my MySQL password. So I'll paste that there. Now let's point to our Wazuh Manager. So notice that this section here pertains to our Wazuh Manager. So I'm going to point this to my Wazuh Manager. This could either be an IP address or the host name. If it is a host name, just make sure your Docker application can actually resolve that. And there's steps within CoPilot's README to do that. So we've got our Wazuh Manager pointed to. Again, so you guys will notice that we're pointing to port 55,000, which is the standard for Wazuh's API. If you've also changed the username and password for that, then you can reflect that there. But if you just left it as default, then that's what will be. You'll also notice that we have this Velociraptor API key, and we're actually done setting with our .env file. Of course, update your OpenAI API key if you hadn't done that. But what we're actually going to need to do, because Velociraptor's API works via that YAML file, right? For those that are familiar with Velociraptor, we're actually going to add that file to a particular directory. So here, I'm in my op copilot directory here. If I ls this out, you see that we have this data directory. If we ls this out, you'll notice that I have this copilot MCP. Now, if you guys don't have this, just do a make dir for copilot-mcp. So create the directory. And then once you've created that directory, and if I cd into here, you'll notice that I have my api.config.yaml, so which is the Velociraptor API settings. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to create this Copilot MCP directory. And then once you have that created, add your api.config.yaml, which is what Velociraptor leverages for the API. So now, once all that is done, once you've added that, and again, you won't need to change this path, so don't worry about that. But you will need to add in your api.config.yaml. And once we have that saved off, let's now go into our Docker Compose file. And we'll also go back into the Docker Compose within GitHub here. And what I'm going to add is this new Copilot MCP service. So I'm going to copy from Copilot MCP all the way down to the bottom here. And I'm going to put that in my buffer. And then within my Docker Compose on my server that's running Copilot, I'm going to just come below where I have the Copilot nuclei module. And then I'm just going to paste exactly what I copied within the Docker Compose within GitHub, specifically to my Docker Compose of my actual Copilot server. So I'll just paste that in there, and you can see that we're referencing all of our environment variables that we just set within our .env file. You'll also notice that we're mounting that Velociraptor config file, right? So we're copying that actually into the container so that the Copilot MCP container can actually leverage that API file. And now that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and save that off. And first, what I'm going to do is now download the latest Copilot MCP image. So I'm going to do a Docker Compose pull. And you can see that we're pulling our front end and also our Copilot MCP. So you'll want to make sure that you do this Docker Compose pull so that you get all of the latest updates into Copilot. All right, and now with that pulled, I'll go ahead and do a Docker Compose up-d to kick off Copilot. And now when I refresh Copilot here and log back in, you'll notice that we have this new AI chatbot icon. And within this icon here, we have the ability to now ask our Copilot MCP a question. But let's first step through the interface and see what it all pertains to. So here we have how to interface with Copilot. So this would be asking about customer data or customer alerts that have been identified by the SIEM stack. What third-party integrations do I have for a customer? Anything that pertains to the Copilot platform itself. So anything within here. I can also directly interface with the Wazuh Manager, the Wazuh Indexer, or my Velociraptor server. So I will first want to select what actual SIEM stack tool, right, that I want to actually interface with. So let's do a quick example with Copilot. Let's say, so here it says you have a total of 3 customers in your database. Can even be a little more specific. Let's say instead, what customers do I have? So that we get our customer names. So I've got this lab customer, test customer, and customer B. Okay, so now let me ask, how many alerts does the lab customer have? Here we can see the lab customer has a total of 233 alerts. So let's actually check that. So if I go into alerts, actually I do see the total is 233. If I add a filter and I'll just select the lab customer code and submit this, you see that sure enough, we do have 233 alerts for the lab customer. So, okay, so now that we know we have 233 alerts, so the AI agent was actually successful in retrieving that data. Let's say for the lab customer, which asset, let's say highest, which asset is associated with the highest number of alerts. So maybe as a SOC analyst, I want to see for all my alerts for this lab customer, which endpoints or which assets are associated with the highest number of alerts. So now you can see, yes, it's true. I could find the answer to that question directly by using the filters within Copilot itself. But now we have the means to ask a question in natural language to our AI chatbot. And now we see that the asset associated with the highest number of alerts is this to be filled by OEM with a total of 133 alerts. So if we also add a filter by, let's say, the asset name, the mean to be filled by OEM, sure enough, we see 133 total out of the 233 alerts. So there has been a lot of malicious activity on this particular endpoint. Maybe I want to ask a more generic question. What integrations does the customer, actually, I could say what third party integrations does the lab customer, let's say, have deployed? So maybe I want to quickly see, all right, how many actual third party integrations do I have for this lab customer? Do I have Office 365 provisioned, CrowdStrike provisioned? What exactly has been provisioned for this customer as it pertains to third party integrations? So here we can see the lab customer has the following third party integrations deployed, just Huntress. And we can actually see the logic it took and go into, and if I want to validate that, if I go into customers, details, I'll select my third party integrations. Sure enough, the only one that we have deployed is, of course, that of Huntress. So even though we do have Office 365 configured, it's not deployed. And the specific question that we asked is what has been deployed? Let's actually start to communicate with our backend services like our Wazuh Manager, our Wazuh Indexer, or Velociraptor. So I can select Wazuh Indexer, and you'll also see that we have some example questions that pop up. So I can select some of these guys. So let's see, what is the cluster health status? So what is the health of my Wazuh Indexer cluster? Here we can see the current health status of the OpenSearch cluster, which here where it actually fetched the cluster name for us of SOCFortress Lab. And we can see that it is in green state. We also get the number of nodes, primary shards, and some other metadata associated with the cluster health. So pretty helpful. What if I now wanted to get the most critical vulnerabilities for a particular agent? So here we see that in our example question here. And so here I say, what are the most critical vulnerabilities for agent name? And now let me actually specify that agent name. From the index pattern, Wazuh states vulnerability followed by a wildcard. So I know that Wazuh now with its, I think after its 4.8 release, changed how it stores vulnerabilities into a particular index pattern. So now, since that index pattern exists within my Wazuh Indexer, I can now ask a question such as, what are the most critical vulnerabilities? And the AI agent now has the ability to fetch that data. So here we can see that we have found 17 critical vulnerabilities for this agent. And here it actually enumerates the full index name for us. Here's a recent example of such vulnerability. And maybe I want a little more. So here, let me actually just edit this original question. And I'll say, what are all critical vulnerabilities from the index pattern? Explain, I don't know, I'll just say explain these vulnerabilities in great detail. And let's actually see what the model is able to come up with. So I can also directly just edit questions as well and add on to them and then resubmit them. There is currently no conversation history as of yet. So that might be something I'll look to add in the future. I really just wanted to see if this would actually work. And actually, to my surprise, I'm actually pretty impressed by how it's been so far. Now, also, of course, take into consideration that prompting is it's kind of a new skill set that we've all had to acquire and learn as we start to work more and more with LLM models. Depending on how you're prompting the model and what your query is, that can severely dictate the type of responses that we get back. I've got some pre-built templates with that are added on to all the questions that you guys ask within the AI chatbot here to hopefully give us the best results as possible. But in the event where maybe it's not returning the exact results that you're looking for, then I would highly encourage you guys to tweak around with your prompting and come up with more specific requirements for your prompt. But here we can actually see, so here the AI agent actually fetched the critical vulnerabilities for our agent. And it looks like it gave us back the top 10 and gave us a detailed explanation of these vulnerabilities. Let's actually see, does this link actually work? Oh, cool. Sure enough, it does. All right. So that's nice too. So it actually as well gives us a hyperlink. Let's actually check this. So if I go into my agent list here, then here's the agent that I asked about. And let me open up my chatbot. So CVE 2233845. Sure enough. And that is the first vulnerability that we see here that pertains to curl. So really cool. So now I can just ask my chatbot, hey, what vulnerabilities for this particular endpoint? Let's now step into the Wazuh Manager. So what can we say about the Wazuh Manager? Here, let's say, what's the agent? What is the status of this agent? Now, what this is going to fetch is the status of the Wazuh agent running on this particular endpoint. And I expect it to come back as an active state. So sure enough, here we actually see the metadata that the Wazuh agent is collecting from the endpoint. You can also minimize the thought process as well if you don't care to see that by selecting that there. Let's also say, what are the SCA findings? So this is if you guys are familiar with Wazuh, which I imagine you are if you've come across this video, Wazuh has what they call security configuration assessments. So we can actually now also query that data via the AI agent. So let's see what it actually came back. So here, the security configuration and assessment findings are as follows. So here we see, it looks like 2 scans have ran, a total check of 261. They've been 36 passed, 17 have failed. And then for this second check, which is an IAS check, I guess I did actually test that at one point. I totally forgot about that. But let me ask more about what's failed. So instead of what are the SCA findings for this agent, let me specify. So I could say for the SCA scan on endpoint, what are the 17 failed findings? Maybe I could say failed checks. Let's actually see what happens. So this is a little more of a complex question, right? We're asking it for a particular scan to fetch what are the 17 failed checks. All right, and that one definitely took a little longer to return back to us, which I expected, but it looks like it actually found the answer. So here are the 17 failed checks for the SCA scan on this particular endpoint. And it's actually giving us, wow, this is actually really good. I'm curious how actually accurate this is. So let's go ahead and go into SCA. Here is our check. SCA results. Let me filter on what has failed. So the first one we see interactive logon, don't display last signed in. Oh, wow, sure enough. Interactive login, don't display last sign in is set to enabled. And it's also giving us how we can fix that particular failed security configuration assessment. It looks like the only thing that it got wrong, or maybe that's actually a bug within the front end, is the numbering here. So it went 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, but maybe that's the front end, actually. I need to dive into that a little further. But if that's the only thing that it got wrong, then I'm happy with that. For previous logins to cache, so was that our second one? Number of previous logins to cache. So sure enough. So really cool. Our full AI agent was actually able to handle a little bit more of a complex question by actually interfacing with our Wazuh Manager, right? So that's really the magic that's happening here, is that the AI agent is now able to integrate with your actual SIEM stack. Let's go to Velociraptor. I really like this guy. So here with this one, and you can see that I have my Velociraptor agent here. We say what users have logged onto, oh, damn it. Let me get my agent name back. See, instead of logged onto, I'll say what users have RDP'd onto this host. And I don't know if there's anything in the last 30 days, so I'm just going to make it more generic and just let the AI agent set its own time frame. So here I'm asking a question, what users have RDP'd? And so what's cool here is that now the AI agent should now invoke the RDP auth artifact if that's the one it selects. And sure enough, it did. So look, we can actually see it running here. So the Copilot MCP, or the AI agent running within the Copilot MCP, is actually leveraging the Velociraptor server to now run this artifact. And based on the query, so here we asked it what users have RDP'd. So the AI agent determined I'm going to use this artifact RDP off to do so. Looks like it did that. It collected the results back, and now assume the model is putting it into better context for us to understand as an end user. So sure enough, here we now get our response back. The activity for this host has been gathered. So here we can see some connection events. So here it summarized our key event details, summary of RDP connections by the admin via this source IP. So it's now been able to, and if we look at the results here that we got back from Velociraptor, sure, we see the administrator, the IP address, 161.192.168.1.157. Really cool. What about, let's say, internet history? I'll say what internet history can be spotted on this particular agent. And let's see what it comes up with. So actually, sure enough, it just ran our Chrome history. What internet history can be spotted? Internet history has been successfully retrieved. The analyst focused on the Chrome browser history, and results included just YouTube. And it looks like I accessed YouTube on June 5th of 2025 on this particular endpoint. History data was obtained from this file path. Like, man, so cool. Or I could ask a more generic question. Let's just say, Windows. Let's say I want to know like a good artifact to run. So what Windows artifact are good to be ran to find like on a system. So now rather than asking Velociraptor to like artifact results from an endpoint, here we're just asking a more generic question of like some good Windows artifacts to run to find users. It just gave us the artifact Windows sys users. So that seems pretty straightforward. So let's actually have it. So let's actually run that artifact. So now I could say run the Windows sys users artifact on the endpoint IV. So let's say run this artifact on the endpoint. Let's be even more specific. So now, like, I imagine this to actually get faster and better results, or if you tell the agent to just run a particular artifact, because it's not having to try to assume based on your query what artifact would be the best to run. Here we're just telling it, hey, I want you to run this artifact. And if we go into Velociraptor, I imagine, yeah, we see this artifact is now currently running. It looks like no results have come back yet. Oh, because here's an interesting example. My endpoint just actually got knocked offline. And that's because I have it turn itself off after about an hour. So I guess I've hit that limit. So actually, this should just fail because it'll actually never come back. And let's see actually what the AI agent actually responded with. So the collection, this artifact has been initiated. However, the results are not available. This can indicate that the flow is still running or encountered an issue. Sure enough, look at this. It gives us the flow ID that ran. And if I look at the flow ID, so now like I'm needing to troubleshoot this, I can find the exact flow ID that has not completed. And let me actually start the server back up so we can actually get these results. But man, like while my Windows host is booting back up, just really excited about this update. This has been really cool to learn and fun and challenging to learn in terms of the architecture of MCP servers and really kind of challenges that they can help us solve. And I'm really excited to be able to bring this functionality directly into Copilot. And I hope it is really helpful for you guys as well. I should be able to. I also have a Linux agent. So let me say that. So let's actually say rather than users for this Linux agent. Since it's actually Linux, let's see if the AI agent is smart enough to be able to determine, okay, I know this is a Linux agent, so I need to run a Linux artifact. What users are on, really bad question, but let's see actually what it's able to do with that. So if I go into Velociraptor, let's go into collected, it actually just ran the Linux sys users, and let's see what it responded back with. So the users on this system are as follows: root, so all of our system standard ones, news, proxy, backup list, nobody. So here we have just our root user, and then we also have our Wazuh user as well, because that Wazuh agent running on this guy. So we see that. Users are from the Etsy password file. So it's actually telling you too, like, got those. And if we go into Velociraptor and look at our results, we see all of them here. Let's say, like, I don't know. Let's say who has SSH in the, let's say, last, I don't know, 30 days. And this will be the last one. I could be here for hours asking questions. So I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time, but I want you guys to start to explore it on your own as well. But let's see who has SSH onto this agent in the last 30 days. So it ran this artifact of Linux syslog SSH login, but did not return any results. So if we look at here, okay, if it actually didn't get back to us any results, okay. Here are some alternative Linux artifacts that may provide additional insights or information relevant to the SSH activity. Okay, so it's also now giving us some other options. It's saying, hey, I didn't find any results for this, but here's 3 other artifacts that I found that maybe could give us good results as well. That could give us the results that you're looking for. So let's see this last user login. And I'm actually going to test this by just running directly from Velociraptor itself. And I have no idea if this is actually going to give us results or not. Okay, it does. So let's actually say, okay, run last 30 days. And I'll say using the artifact, I will hard set it. And so let's see. So now if we go into Velociraptor, we should see a last user login kick off. If we do, looks like it finished already for the past 30 days. Oh, wait, I really hope I got that right. That would be really cool. What day was this? Okay, so this would be, so June 27th, this would be right outside. So it actually do the right parameter, recent number of days, 30. Oh man, this is really cool. Okay, let me change this to 60 days and let's see if it actually gets back the root user. That's actually really cool. This what I would hope would happen, that it would apply this parameter here. So let's see with the latest one. Look, so the latest one, it changes to 60. Sure enough, it got that back. So now we can see that the root user logged in on this particular day. Really cool, really powerful. The possibilities here are endless. I have like so many other ideas for MCP servers that we'll be introducing here to CoPilot in the future. Excited to see you guys. I hope it'll be really helpful for you guys. A helpful kind of extra stock analyst AI chatbot directly built into your SIEM stack, leveraging CoPilot. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I appreciate your time and I will see you in the next one.